especially when you're making a film on the most fearless couple of India.
We haven't really matured as a society. We haven't grown as a society. I'm not a filmmaker who depends on creative liberties or cinematic liberties, rather than whitewashing history and presenting something that is totally fake. You need to watch the film and then you'll see the beautiful balance that Jyotirao and Savitribai created.
Welcome everyone to this fresh episode of Pulse Maharashtra with me Vinaya Deshpande. Even as controversy over the movie Phule rages, it is set to release on the 25th of this month after a delay of a few days. Remember, it was slated to be released on 11th of April on the birth anniversary of Mahatma Phule. Today, amid this controversy, I have with me the director of the movie, Anant Mahadevan. Sir, thank you so much for your time for The Hindu. We really appreciate it and welcome on the show. To begin with, I want to ask you my first question. Did you anticipate this kind of controversy around the movie?
See, one doesn't get into filmmaking anticipating any kind of trouble or protests, especially when you're making a film on the most fearless couple of India. I would call them the first couple of India, India's first social revolutionaries, Jyotirao and Savitribai. When you're making a film on them and their fearlessness and their strength and their futuristic, outlook, one doesn't anticipate this kind of, opinion or backlash, or whatever you call it. So I was a little surprised that a lot of people jumped the gun. They just watched the trailer and they came to some conclusions which were not correct. As why a certain community was maligned in the trailer and why wasn't it given the kind of justice they expected to be. But that's not the case at all. In fact, one should wait to watch the film and then decide for oneself as to what the balance of history is and how well it is balanced and how Jyotirao and Savitribai Phule actually received a lot of support from the Brahmin community. In fact, it was they who gave them their first premises for building or, setting up their first school. So it's a bit, too early in the day to come to these kind of conclusions that some community has been not given the justice it deserves. So yes, this kind of protest is something I don't agree with at all.
So after you look at the controversies, do you think that we are still far away from the ideals that Jyotirao and Savitribai fought for?
Yes, sometimes I do feel that, they were far, far more progressive and liberal in those days. And somewhere, have we regressed as a society? I mean, that's a question that comes to mind. And yes, I mean, I would say that, we haven't really matured as a society. We haven't grown as a society. We consider ourselves the most superior beings on this planet. But the way we behave sometimes, our entire mindsets do not reflect that kind of boast, that we carry so pompously, that we are the most superior beings on the planet. Because our thinking, our social, standing, the kind of uncivil behavior that we sometimes exhibit towards other human beings or even other creatures. No, yes, we don't seem to have really progressed the way Jyotirao and Savitribai Phule must have dreamt of a society. And utopia, if you can use that word, is probably light years away.
Have any questions been raised about the research for the film, about whether as a filmmaker you've taken any cinematic liberties, whether the film has stuck to the true depiction of the lives of both these superheroes?
See, at the outset, let me underline that I'm not a filmmaker who depends on creative liberties or cinematic liberties. It is something that you have to clutch on to only if you feel that you are not doing justice to the subject and you're not being honest to your subject. Now, whether it's Sindhutai Sabkal or Gaur Hari Das, or whether it is Dr. Ratmabai or now Jyotirao and Savitribai Phule, I feel that biopics the way we look at biopics, unfortunately, is very exaggerated, very over the top, and melodramatic. And that is not the case with any of my films. It is a no-nonsense approach. It is being very, very honest to the subject and giving the subject the justice that he or she deserves. So, right from the beginning when we did our research, we were very, very clear that we stick to the facts, we stick to history, and we represent history. We do not interpret history, for any personal causes. So that's how it has been, and this is a straightforward rendition of history. Of course, visually you will find it very dramatic, visually you will find it spectacular, because that's what cinema is all about.
Do you think that as a society we are averse to being shown the mirror? That we do not really want to face the kind of unpalatable truth that our history reflects?
Yes, when you mention a mirror, every time we look in the mirror, we only adjust our hair and look at our face and see how beautiful we can look in the mirror if the mirror is not giving you a very flattering image. So if a film is a mirror of society, I think that is a place where you can only improve your looks if you improve your mindset and you improve your approach towards life. And that is where the improvement should happen. And that is where, when a film mirrors the negative parts or the evils of society or the issues of society, it is up to you to repair that particular part of society. And if you do not want to face that, and if you feel that that is unpalatable, well, too bad, because that is what history was all about. And especially with Jyotirao and Savitribai Phule, the history is recurring. These were heroes of their times who set out on a mission, who set out on a futuristic mission, but the mission did not get complete in their lifetime. And they knew about it. They knew that this wouldn't be solved in another 100 years, 150 years. And sure enough, 175 years down the line, we still face these issues. Of course, there have been certain improvements, especially when the girl child has got educated and when women have become independent. Okay, we can look at that as a positive fallout of Jyotirao and Savitribai Phule's reforms. But if you look at the other issues like gender discrimination, caste discrimination, and several other problems that we have sort of, built up for ourselves during this course, we find that these issues have not been addressed fully, these issues have not been solved fully, and the history that is recurring and flowing down from the middle of the 19th century right down to us in the 21st century is still facing us and glaring at us in the face. So it's sad that we are not self-critical, Our biggest problem is that we haven't matured as a society and we are not self-critical. We do not want to face our faults. If your child behaves badly, you actually don't admonish the child, you actually pat him on the back and say, go ahead, you're a cool dude. So if we're going to do that to our next generation and not go into repair mode like Jyotirao and Savitribai Phule, then we're in for a lot of trouble.
How do you see this whole effort to pressurize to whitewash history?
Rather take the pressure than the conscience of having made a film that has whitewashed history. So I would rather look at the pressure, address the pressure, and try to sort of, make them understand and see reason. I think that is more in keeping with things rather than whitewashing history and presenting something that is totally fake.
Through all this, did you engage with the protesters? Did you try and put forth your reason? Did they see any reason when they had a conversation with you?
Yes, I did have a telephone conversation with one or two of them, and I tried to tell them that please do not jump the gun. These are snippets from a trailer, and you cannot come to any conclusions about what the bigger picture is. You need to watch the film, and then you'll see the beautiful balance that Jyotirao and Savitribai created with the Brahmin community, and how the symbiotic relationship between the two led to, the improvement of social values. So I did try and talk to them and try and convince them. I do not know whether they're fully convinced. They wanted to watch the film. I said they're most welcome to watch the film when it's released in cinemas on the 25th, I wouldn't be doing a preview to prove that I am right, because I do not need to prove anything.
So now with respect to CBFC, sir, what is it exactly? Are these cuts or are these amendments? How will we see the film and how do you see the CBFC's suggestions to you?
See, I would call them amendments, or I would call them recommendations by the CBFC. And most of them have resulted in diluting certain words. I mean, they did not want to address the lower castes by their names. So they say, why don't you just say lower castes or Pichhdi Hui Samaj or whatever. And also the number of years that we've been like literally, you know, under the thumb of not just the British, but also certain traditions and values that we have inflicted on ourselves.
The caste system.
The caste system particularly, which has not been conducive to society. So they probably did not want to say 3,000 years, they say several years. You know, this has been going on. Now, I really do not know what difference that makes, because the audience is an intelligent audience. The audience is an audience that knows its history. And considering that so many of them have risen and commented on what is happening, I can see that they are knowledgeable and they are aware of what history is. So if you have even attempting to soften something like this by being very oversensitive, I think it's a futile exercise.
Do you see this as an effort of shadow censoring, the fringe groups putting pressure on CBFC in order to try and see that there is censure over the film?
See, I'm sure the fringe groups must have approached the CBFC and requested them to take another look at the film, but that is all right. I mean, they are within their rights to approach anyone and talk to them. But legally, the film has got a certificate. It has got a use certificate. It has even been unofficially endorsed by the committee as to be strongly recommended to the youth and children to watch because of the values that this film upholds. So I think that particular organization should turn around and tell these people, look, wait and watch the film. We know our job. The reason why we gave it a use certificate is because of certain reasons. And please wait and watch the film and you'll all be happy. So please do not jump the gun like the way you're doing it.
But the question is, do you watch a film for happiness or do you watch it to see the portrayal of a slice of history?
I mean, if you have a grouse, and we are here to make sure that that grouse doesn't exist after you watch the film. By the saying happy, I don't mean happiness in that sense. I mean satisfaction, you know, that you're satisfied, you're content that the film does not, you know, step on anyone's sensibilities and sentiments, and it is a fair and absolutely like unbiased, unprejudiced representation of what happened in history. Now, history is not always sugar-coated. It has got its, you know, points that could hurt or could put a finger on very sensitive issues. But we today as a society, if we claim that we have grown beyond all that and we have come beyond all that, then I think that sense of maturity should exist, that you should understand what happened in history. How do we take corrective measures for that? And the equality that Jyotirao and Savitribai Phule fought for, why can't we get that equality and inclusiveness in society today? If we still are power hungry, if we still want to divide our society, and if we still want to continue the way we were in the 18th or 19th century, then I would say that we haven't progressed at all. We've just sort of generated generations after generations, but without any growth in you know, our mindsets at all.
How do you see your caste being used by both the sides to further their arguments?
It's amusing because as a Brahmin myself, I mean, it has nothing to do with me being a Brahmin or nothing to do with me trying to justify it because I'm a Brahmin. I mean, I would do that to myself, and I would be very self-critical of myself if I have made any mistakes. There's nothing wrong in being self-critical. And there's nothing wrong in being, you need not be ashamed of what you've done. What you got to do is say, yes, I accept it, that certain kind of acceptance that yes, maybe our earlier generations, our ancestors did make a mistake, did push the envelope a little too much, and here we are. And we are not here to create a Romeo and Juliet kind of situation where two families will sort of, harbor enmity for the rest of their lives and generations, and make sure even their children will not fall in love with each other. Jyotirao and Savitribai Phule did not want to create a hate society. They wanted to create a society that loved each other and respected each other, and gave everyone a status that would be, dignified and respectful. And here we are misreading everything and misinterpreting everything. So I would say that it's a sad thing that people still think on those lines, that we are trying to pull somebody down and history is repeating itself all over again. No, let's learn from history.
Do you see the movie Phule as a contribution or a chronicle to the caste struggles that the couple put forth?
Absolutely. It's a very urgent film, and a person no less than B.R. Ambedkar Saab, he drew inspiration from Jyotirao and Savitribai Phule, and today if we are following his doctrine, it is thanks to the origin, the source, that is Jyotirao and Savitri. So you can understand how urgent and how important a film it is.
One last question, what's your appeal to the viewers?
Well, I would like to tell them that, look, this is where we came from. This is what we tried to amend. This is what we tried to correct in society. And if Jyotirao and Savitribai Phule could start it in their teens, it's not that they started it when they were in their middle age. You can see the kind of courage and the conviction that they had. Today, all these kids call themselves Gen Z or cool dudes or whatever. I mean, they were the cool dudes of those days. I mean, they are the person to emulate. They are the persons to emulate. I mean, they are the people who should be your role models. They should be your heroes. So you know what to do. And if you want to give your next generation a world worth living in, you've just got to look back at Jyotirao and Savitribai.
On that note, sir, thank you so much for your precious time and for speaking to The Hindu, and wish you all the very best for the release of the film.
Thank you for having me, and it's always a pleasure talking to The Hindu.
Thank you.
Thanks.